All right, welcome back. Today we are diving deep into the hidden world of fighting financial crime. We all know that banks and financial firms spend an absolute fortune trying to stop the bad guys, but how much does it really cost? Well, the US government is finally trying to find out, and we've got our hands on the exact survey they're using to get that answer. So let's get into it.
So this is the central question, isn't it? I mean, just think about it for a second. Every year, these firms spend billions, maybe even trillions of dollars globally on all this compliance stuff, but there's no official price tag. It's just a huge question mark hanging over the entire financial system.
And this is the government's game plan. What we're looking at here is the actual survey being sent out to broker-dealers and mutual funds. This is the tool that's supposed to finally put a number on the massive effort that goes into following all those anti-money laundering laws.
Now, at the heart of all this, you've got the Bank Secrecy Act, or the BSA. This is the bedrock law, the one that says all these anti-crime programs have to exist. So whenever we talk about the cost, what we're really talking about is the cost of following the rules of the BSA.
Okay, so where do you even begin trying to calculate a number that big? Well, the survey's first move is pretty bold. It just asks for one single figure that captures the grand total. Yeah, it really just gets straight to the point. The very first question is the big one, and it kind of sets the stage for everything else that's coming.
And there it is. No beating around the bush. Just how much did you spend? The government wants a hard number in US dollars for the entire year. This right here is the headline figure that everybody is waiting for.
But what exactly counts as a cost? Well, the survey is super specific about this. They only want to know about the direct costs. So, things like the salaries of your compliance officers, that crazy expensive software that flags suspicious transactions, and any consultants you hire. They're not interested in the overhead stuff like office rent or how much your computers went down in value.
And this is the great unknown. This question mark represents billions upon billions of dollars. The entire point of this whole first part of the survey is to fill in this blank and finally put a real number on the industry's total direct spending.
Okay, so once you have that gigantic total number, the next logical question has to be, where is all that money actually going? And that's exactly where the survey goes next, breaking that big number down.
So, a massive piece of the puzzle is technology. The survey asks firms to pinpoint exactly how they're using software, for checking customer IDs, for monitoring transactions, for screening against sanctions lists, and a whole lot more. This gives regulators a kind of roadmap to see which parts of the compliance machine are the most automated and probably the most expensive.
But of course, compliance isn't just about fancy software. A huge part of it is old-fashioned investigation and reporting, or to put it another way, paperwork. The survey wants to know what chunk of the total cost is eaten up by this really crucial but super labor-intensive process.
Now, what's really interesting here is how they define the cost of filing these things called Suspicious Activity Reports, or SARs. It's not just the time it takes to write the report. No. It includes the entire life cycle, from the first software alert to the analyst who has to review it, and then the investigator who has to dig deeper, even if it turns out to be a false alarm and no report ever gets filed. All of that time and effort gets counted.
And for the firms that can provide even more detail, the survey asks for this super granular breakdown. Take a look at this table. It's optional, but it's fascinating because it slices the compliance pie in a totally new way, by activity. It's asking for the percentage of money spent on everything, from staff training to software to just doing basic customer ID checks. This gives regulators an incredibly detailed map of exactly where all the money is flowing.
But, compliance isn't just about ticking boxes and following the letter of the law. The survey gets into this really interesting area. What happens when firms go above and beyond what's legally required?
And this slide just illustrates the two sides of the coin perfectly. On one side, you have everything you have to do to comply with the BSA. But on the other, you have all these voluntary efforts. We're talking about things like creating a dedicated financial intelligence unit, which isn't explicitly required by law, but a lot of the big institutions do it to try and be more proactive.
And see, the survey doesn't just ask how much these extra programs cost. It asks a much more important question. Are they worth it? Do these above and beyond efforts actually generate a substantial portion of the useful intelligence that ends up in those suspicious activity reports? Are they actually helping?
So this all leads us to the final and most crucial question. Why is the government even doing this? What's the end game for this massive data collection project?
Well, the survey itself tells us why. Right in the introduction it says, and this is a direct quote, that the responses will be used to shape deregulatory proposals consistent with the executive orders of the Trump administration. So there it is, a direct line between collecting data and potentially changing policy.
So really, the key takeaway here is this. You can't have a serious conversation about making regulations more efficient or maybe less of a burden until you know what they actually cost in the first place. This survey is step one. It's all about building a foundation of data to evaluate the rules we already have.
And ultimately, this is the question that we're all left with. This entire effort really just boils down to a fundamental trade-off. How do we find that sweet spot between protecting our financial system from crime and making sure that the system itself can still run smoothly and efficiently? Finding that balance? Well, that's one of the biggest challenges there is.